The Linux community is an interesting place. There is really no single way to define it. Really, everybody has different opinion about how things work. Foremost, the Linux community is awesome. It has its faults, but among all the communities that I have participated in, the Linux community has consistently been the best one, with the most occasions to learn and some of the most committed people, maybe too much. The Linux community feels like home at this point, and I interact with it almost every day. Actually, yes, every day. However, the reputation for the Linux community is a bit mixed. Specifically, a lot of folks find the Linux community to be too elitist, too prone to turn away or exclude beginners from joining the ranks, and practicing toxic gatekeeping, let's call it. But are these claims really really actual and still practical? Do they still apply in 2025? Well, a famous quote with a fairly contested origin says, "Give a man a fish and you feed him for that day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime." I cannot pronounce things today. If I had to describe what I love about the Linux community in a single sentence, this would be it. The community has the rather rare attribute of being filled with passionate people who really care. This is why when you ask for help on anything, you will likely find people who are invested in really helping you. And the best way to help somebody out with a technical problem is never to feed them the solution as it is, but way more often it is to teach them how to solve that kind of issue themselves. This happens a lot in Linux communities too. While your issue can probably be solved with a single command to be run and be done with, you are going to find a lot of people who are going to try to help you reach that solution yourself. They are going to give you practical tips, they are going to give you leads, you will be pointed in the right direction, linked to documentation to read, but you will typically not be given a readily baked solution immediately. And for a beginner, this might seem annoying and paternalistic. I am not going to lie, when I was a new leaf in the community, this behavior really annoyed me as well. As time went on, though, I realized just how important it is for several reasons. Firstly, contrary to what a lot of people argue, helping a people this way is not a cop-out or a way to avoid making effort. Quite the opposite, in fact, providing the solution outright with no context or explanation is trivially easy to do, and it only takes a few seconds of your life. Helping you learn takes way more effort. A person whom you gave some leads to solve a problem is not going to stop there. They are going to go back to double check their progress with you and expect more guidance and pointers. Helping a person like this is a way higher commitment of time and energy than just giving them a command to copy and paste. The same happens when somebody asks for help on something really specific, and rather than just being given the solution, they get asked for broader context. A lot of people usually get irritated by this stuff because they feel as though their needs are not being listened to. And frankly, it is easy to empathize here. People often leave these conversations being told what they're trying to do doesn't make sense, and they should do something completely different instead. Initially, this behavior could make you feel unheard or treated poorly. I certainly felt like this at the beginning. However, when you get more mileage with Linux, you will eventually start to get it. For any given problem, there is such a thing as a good or bad solution. Frequently, the hard part is not the execution itself, say coding a simple bash script that solves your problem. Rather, it is the idea. The hard part is taking a broader problem and successfully narrowing it down to a solution that makes sense given a certain context. At the beginning, you will not have this skill and you will chase a lot of dead ends. While it can be frustrating to be treated this way, your fellow community members are merely trying to pull you out of a rut, suggest you a cleaner solution, and give you pointers in how to go about it. Those who do not let the irk and the annoyance get the best of them tend to learn a lot from these troubleshooting sessions. Helping people to learn properly is a lot of work, but it does pay off. The open source community has been surviving through several generations thanks to a principle known as transfer of knowledge. A community like the Linux community should not be perceived as a product of some sort. It is not a company that provides consultancy and professional services for a fee. It is not a vendor whom you can contact to get support on a product you bought. It is a community of people who are united by their love for Linux and the ethical principles that stand behind it. And they have a culture of helping each other. Every person is at the same time expected to help and be helped. It is natural that as you go on with your life, you might shift towards one specific area of expertise. You can never know everything about everything. It's just not feasible. Simply put, what often ends up happening is that amongst all the people that you transfer some of your knowledge to, some of them will stick around in the community long term and keep interacting. Well, before they even know it, one day they will find themselves on the other side, transferring their knowledge by mentoring beginners and help them get past the same hurdles that once plagued them too. This is how open source communities survive. When you truly learn about Linux and related free and open source technologies, you will typically contribute back, not only to fellow community members, but also to the world in general. You will feel compelled to teach your friends about Linux. You will solve problems in your organization. You will use those skills in positive ways. In a lot of other communities, this doesn't exist. When you ask for help, you will get spoon-fed a solution, but you'll know nothing about how or why that works. Have you ever tried to diagnose a problem on a Windows computer? If you did, then you will get what I mean here. You will be given an extremely operative and to-the-point solution, but you won't know why it works. You might even be given a .reg file to import in your Windows registry, but you will not be told what it touched, why, and why it works. Likewise, you might be given a CMD command or a series of clicks you must do in a graphical interface, but that won't teach you anything. The best definition of what gatekeeping is, and when it's good or bad, is SOATOX, is that how you pronounce it, article, no gates, no keepers, which I highly recommend that you give a read. Just Google it. I have been unable to find any resource that explains it better. Going by SOATOX definition, I can confidently say what a community is doing here does not count as toxic gatekeeping, because they are not trying to limit a newcomer access to information, knowledge, or even acceptance in the community. If anything, they might be trying to gatekeep poor solutions that you should not attempt due to them being terrible ideas. But is that wrong? A good mentor should not only be teaching you what to do, they should be clearly teaching you what to avoid as well. When you are a beginner in any skill set, programming, Linux, DevOps, writing, making music, whatever, the best thing you can do for yourself is to swallow your pride and learn from people who have already honed that craft for a while. While what I have said above is still true, the old saying is still true, the truth is rarely pure and never simple. Oscar Wilde, I guess. Along your journey in the Linux community, there is a non-zero chance that you will encounter folks who have really strong opinions on certain pieces of software. Systemd. These opinions can be very absolute rather than relative. You're not going to be recommended against a specific tool that might be unfit for the specific job that you're trying to achieve. Rather, you might be told that that tool is bad and you shouldn't use it, like ever. The typical targets are Linux distributions and desktop environments that are really mainstream, easy to get going with, and widely used, like Ubuntu Linux distributions or the GNOME desktop environment. As a beginner, these statements might be disorientating to hear. Imagine you have just begun trying out Linux for yourself by installing a copy of Ubuntu alongside your existing copy of Windows, and you're still learning to get the hang of Ubuntu. Everything is going well enough until you meet that guy who tells you that you made a horrible choice, and everything you use actually sucks. Reacting with annoyance or frustration is not only understandable, it is the human response. Like, it might even halt your progress there. I know that for some people it did. If every single distro and desktop is hated for a different reason, it is surprisingly easy to enter analysis paralysis and choose nothing. This is a complex phenomenon. Hatred towards certain components of the Linux desktop usually derives from frustration or disagreement with a project direction. Even when it can be partially justified or understood, this behavior is not only not cool, but it's often perpetrated by people who do not have a lot of experience. With only a broad understanding of a topic, especially when the internet exists and acts as an influence, people who do not have a ton of experience on it tend to have a overly simplified view of the world. In turn, this can lead them to think that something must be part of a binary category. It must be either good or wrong, good or bad, and you should probably not listen to people who engage in this behavior. It is a telltale sign that they don't really know as much as you do, and after all, you are better off learning from more experienced people. Thankfully, though, every year that passes, I see less and less of this behavior. While this kind of tribalism used to be acceptable, engaging in it is mostly frowned upon nowadays. Yes, there are still spaces where this behavior is condoned or encouraged, but you should probably not hang around there too much. And while this problem will not concern you in the more popular and vetted Linux spaces, the community is big and varied. You should be cautioned that there are indeed spaces inside the community that are problematic for several reasons, but you do not have to hang out there. On the contrary, you should probably leave those spaces as soon as you notice any red flag. Speaking of spaces in the community that you should hang out, you're currently in one. Welcome. If you haven't done already, you should really join our newsletter. It's completely free and you will get the most important stories on Linux and free and open source software right in your inbox, made with love, with no clickbait titles or sensationalized content. I don't even know how to pronounce sensationalized, and informative excerpts. You can find all of that on the website thelibre.news. Just links in the video description. Anyhow, if you have not been interacting with the community out of fear of being mistreated, fear not. A lot of the concerns and stereotypes you have heard about the community come from years past. At this point, so long as you stick to the most popular spaces, you should be fine. The most relevant projects enforce a code of conduct, and being accepted as a person is not really a problem. The Linux community absolutely thrives on diversity, and there is a spot for you no matter who you are. This diversity is one of the community's greatest assets too. People from different backgrounds and walks of life often have different approaches and perspectives to bring, and that is the key to a good productive community. All you need to do is be mindful where you hang out. While there are some fringe groups that in the community who are elitist, practice toxic gatekeeping, and are not really inclusive, basing their political from reactionary and conservative politics, those communities are typically small and few and far between. It is highly unlikely that you will ever encounter one by mistake, and if you do, just stop hanging out there and keep looking. Believe me, the community is diverse and it is made of so many little pieces. No matter who you are, your identity, your proficiency with Linux, this community is ready to accept you and help you get comfortable. Hopefully, one day you will be on the other side, teaching the next generation of Linux users everything you know. And I think that's fascinating and, quite frankly, the direct opposite of gatekeeping. Well, that was actually very interesting. So a little bit of context before I go unscripted. this channel is like, there's people helping me. This article was written by Luca, who is a very good writer and knows more technical stuff than me. And sometimes I don't have time to proofread articles, so I just go through them. At the end, I was like, oh, that was actually very interesting at the end of the video, because that's when I first learned about everything that I was gonna say. Well done, Luca. Very interesting.